September 1770. For 9 consecutive nights, humanity panicked. All across the planet, from Japan to France, people witnessed the same terrifying spectacle. The horizon was on fire. A blood-red glow filled the night sky, so bright you could read a book at midnight. In city after city, fire alarms rang out, residents convinced a catastrophic blaze was consuming a neighboring town. But there was no fire. The flames were coming from space. This wasn't the end of the world. It was an attack from our own sun, on a scale we haven't seen since. Most of us have heard of the Carrington event of 1859, often cited as the most powerful solar storm ever recorded. But the historical records we are about to open suggest that nearly a century earlier, our planet was hit by something far stronger, a superstorm that lasted for over a week. Welcome to File Drawer Curiosities. Today, we unseal the forgotten records of the 9-night solar storm of 1770. To understand the sheer terror of this event, we have to transport ourselves back to that time. Imagine a world without electricity, without satellites, without any scientific understanding of solar flares. A world lit by candlelight and firelight, where the night sky was a divine map, a celestial clock, and a source of powerful omens. For most of humanity, what happened in September of that year wasn't science. It was a message, a divine warning, or the beginning of the end. Our first pages in this forgotten file come from East Asia. For centuries, court astronomers in China, Korea, and Japan kept meticulous, detailed records of celestial events, viewing them as vital indicators for the health of the empire. On the night of September 10th, their logs exploded with frantic activity. They described the sky as being covered in red vapor and like a great fire. They noted that these strange, fiery lights danced and swirled, unlike anything they had ever documented. For 9 straight nights, the phenomenon returned, each time plunging the population into a deeper state of fear. People were convinced a massive, unquenchable fire had broken out just beyond the horizon, or that it was a terrifying omen foretelling war or famine. And it wasn't just in Asia. Half a world away, the same impossible sky was being documented by some of the most famous explorers and scientists of the age. Captain James Cook, on his first epic voyage circumnavigating the globe, was charting the waters near the island of Timor. In his ship's log, he noted a reddish light resembling the Aurora Borealis shimmering in the sky. Cook and his seasoned crew were thousands of miles south of the Arctic Circle, where such a phenomenon should have been utterly impossible. He was baffled, describing its appearance as extraordinary. At the very same time, back in Europe, the famous Parisian astronomer Charles Messier, known for his catalogue of nebulae and comets, recorded the event with scientific precision. He too was baffled by its incredible intensity and unprecedented duration, describing colors and movements that defied all known explanations of auroras at the time. The evidence was piling up from every corner of the globe. This was not a local atmospheric event. It was global. The entire planet was being bathed in a strange, celestial fire, a force of cosmic proportions. So what exactly was it? What we now understand is that this was a colossal geomagnetic storm, triggered by a massive eruption on the surface of the sun, a coronal mass ejection, or CME. Think of it as a solar hurricane, a billion-ton cloud of magnetized plasma shot into space at millions of miles per hour. When this cloud slammed into Earth's magnetic field, it overloaded it. Our planet's protective shield was compressed and twisted, funneling immense energy toward the poles. This energy supercharged the gases in our upper atmosphere, causing them to glow. This is what creates the Aurora Borealis, the northern lights. But the 1770 event was different. The energy was so immense, so overwhelming, that the auroras weren't confined to the polar regions. They expanded, pushing all the way down to the equator. People in Mexico, in the South Pacific, across Europe and Asia were seeing lights normally reserved for the Arctic fringe. This is known as a low-latitude aurora, and it's a clear sign of an exceptionally powerful geomagnetic storm. The blood-red color that terrified so many people is also a key piece of evidence. Red auroras are produced when high-energy solar particles excite oxygen atoms at very high altitudes, above 150 miles. Seeing such intense, widespread red indicates that our atmosphere was being bombarded by an unbelievable amount of solar energy. Modern science has allowed us to look back and confirm the scale of this forgotten storm. By studying carbon-14 levels trapped in the rings of ancient trees, scientists can detect the radioactive signature left behind by massive solar particle events. And the tree rings from 1770 show a significant spike, confirming that Earth was indeed hit by a massive proton storm from the Sun. The data suggests the 1770 event was at least as strong as the famous Carrington event, and quite possibly even stronger. So, why is the Carrington event of 1859 so much more famous? The answer is simple: technology. By 1859, the world had begun to wrap itself in a new invention, the telegraph network. When the Carrington storm hit, it induced powerful electrical currents in these long metal wires. Telegraph systems across the world went haywire. Operators reported sparks flying from their equipment, some receiving electric shocks. In some cases, the induced currents were so strong that operators could disconnect their batteries and continue transmitting messages using only the power generated by the storm itself. The technological disruption was immediate, tangible, and widely reported, cementing the Carrington event in history. In 1770, there was no electrical grid to collapse. The storm's immense power washed over a world that was technologically immune to it. Its impact wasn't measured in fried circuits, but in human fear and wonder. It became a footnote in astronomical logs and frightened diary entries, a mystery filed away and forgotten as the world marched toward the Industrial Revolution. But that raises a terrifying question. What would happen if a storm of this magnitude, the 9-night superstorm of 1770, were to hit us today? The consequences would be catastrophic, on a scale most of us can barely imagine. Our modern civilization is completely dependent on electricity and satellite technology. A storm of this power would be like a global-scale electromagnetic pulse. The first casualties would be our satellites. GPS, communications, weather forecasting, financial transactions, all of it would go dark within minutes. The storm would then induce massive, uncontrollable power surges in our electrical grids. Transformers would explode, plunging entire continents into darkness. And this wouldn't be a temporary blackout fixed in a few hours or days. We're talking about damage that could take months, or even years to repair. Imagine a world without power, without internet, without GPS, without clean water being pumped to your home, without refrigerated food or medicine. A world where communication breaks down, supply chains collapse, and the intricate systems that support our daily lives simply stop. This isn't a plot from a disaster movie. It's a very real threat that government agencies and scientists are taking extremely seriously. The 1770 storm isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a dire warning written in the sky. The records of 1770 remind us that we live on a beautiful, dynamic planet, but also one that is vulnerable to the immense power of our own star. The sun gives us life, but it also has the capacity to unleash forces that could send our modern world back to a pre-industrial age. By unsealing these forgotten files, we gain a crucial perspective on the true scale of what's possible and a renewed appreciation for the delicate balance that allows our technological society to exist. The sky may be quiet now, but the lessons of 1770 are still there, waiting in the archives, reminding us to look up and prepare. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the past. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to File Drawer Curiosities for more dives into forgotten history. Imagine looking up at the night sky and seeing it burn. Not with the gentle twinkle of stars, but with a terrifying blood-red fire that stretches from one horizon to the other. This isn't a scene from a disaster movie. This happened. In 1770, our planet was engulfed by a celestial spectacle so intense it brought the world to its knees. From a scientific standpoint, we were witnessing a geomagnetic storm of almost unimaginable power. A colossal wave of charged particles, a coronal mass ejection, had been blasted from the sun and was now slamming into Earth. When this solar tsunami hit our planet's magnetic shield, it triggered auroras on a scale that shattered all records. Normally, we see auroras, the northern and southern lights, dancing near the poles. But during this event, vibrant, fiery lights were seen near the equator, a phenomenon that should be impossible. Diagrams from that time show our planet's magnetic field being crushed and warped by the solar onslaught. The scientists of 1770 were utterly baffled. The famous astronomer Charles Messier, observing from Paris, wrote that the aurora was so bright it cast moving shadows on the ground. He had never seen anything like it. This wasn't just a curiosity. It was a cosmic puzzle that challenged their entire understanding of the universe. Evidence suggests this storm was even stronger than the legendary Carrington event of 1859, which knocked out telegraph systems. But for most people, this wasn't science. It was a sign. Across Europe, the blood-red sky was seen as a divine omen, a warning of God's wrath or a prophecy of coming war. Imagine a priest on the steps of his church, pointing to the crimson heavens as his congregation kneels in terror, convinced the end of days had arrived. Halfway around the world in China, the emperor's court astronomers, tasked with interpreting celestial signs, struggled to explain the fiery vapor. A failure to provide a suitable explanation could be seen as a sign that the emperor was losing the mandate of heaven, a crisis that could topple a dynasty. Their observations, recorded on ancient scrolls, speak of a profound unease that gripped the imperial court. Even out on the vast open ocean, the event sowed chaos. The crew of Captain Cook's ship, sailing in the Timor Sea, were jolted awake in the dead of night. The sky had exploded with light so brilliant they thought it was dawn. But a glance at the ship's compass would have revealed a terrifying truth. The needles were spinning wildly. For a sailor in the 18th century, losing your compass in the middle of the ocean was a potential death sentence. The ship's log entries describe a deep sense of disorientation and fear. The very laws of nature seem to have been suspended. From bustling cities to the most remote corners of the globe, the world was turned upside down by a terrifying and beautiful fire in the sky. For a few nights in 1770, humanity was reminded of the immense and untamable power of our sun, a power that could, in an instant, paint the sky with wonder and dread. What would happen if a storm of this magnitude hit our modern tech-dependent world today? That's a question that keeps scientists awake at night. Today, we're diving into a story that was almost lost to history, a cosmic event so powerful it makes the famous Carrington event look like a dress rehearsal. We're talking about the Great Solar Storm of 1770. For nearly 200 years, this incredible global event was just a collection of scattered whispers in dusty archives. You had fragmented stories from all over the world, but no one had put them together. Then, in the 21st century, scientists started connecting the dots. They looked at detailed drawings of blood-red auroras in ancient Japanese diaries. They examined the ship's log of the legendary Captain Cook, and they pored over astronomical notes from European observers. What they found was staggering. The 1770 storm wasn't just a storm, it was a superstorm, a once-in-a-century monster, possibly even stronger and longer-lasting than the Carrington event of 1859. The historical file was officially reopened. But this isn't just a cool history lesson. Think of this discovery as a message in a bottle sent from our ancestors, a terrifying warning about the fragility of our modern world. Back in 1770, this solar storm was a spectacle. People saw the sky blaze with colors it never had before. It was an omen, a source of awe and fear. But life went on. For us today, an event of that magnitude wouldn't be a spectacle. It would be a civilization-altering catastrophe. Just try to imagine it for a second. Imagine a world where the lights go out, and they don't come back on. Not for a day, not for a week. Maybe not for months or even years. Our entire modern society is built on a delicate framework of electricity and digital data. A superstorm on the scale of 1770 would unleash an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, so powerful it would simply overwhelm our power grids. Transformers would literally melt. Power stations could explode. Entire continents would be plunged into a profound, lasting darkness. And the chaos wouldn't stop at the power grid. Think about the hundreds of satellites orbiting our planet right now. They're not just for watching TV. They control our GPS navigation, our global communications, our financial markets, even our weather forecasting. A powerful solar flare would fry their circuits, turning them into a cloud of useless, tumbling space junk. Our phones would go dead. The internet would vanish. The global financial system, which is almost entirely digital, would collapse in an instant. We would be thrown back into a new dark age, but with a terrifying twist. Unlike our ancestors, we've forgotten how to survive without our technology. The complex, just-in-time supply chains that bring food, clean water, and essential medicine to our cities would grind to a halt. Hospitals would lose power. Society as we know it would cease to function. This isn't some science fiction movie plot. It's the stark, scientific warning contained within the historical records of 1770. The same fire in the sky that our ancestors watched with a mix of fear and wonder would, for us, be a fire that consumes our entire way of life. The question is no longer if a storm like this will happen again, but when? And are we prepared for it? Have you ever heard of the 1770 solar storm? It's a nearly forgotten event, a ghost story written in the archives of history. But this isn't just a historical record. It's a prophecy. It's a chilling warning of what the sun is truly capable of, and a preview of what will inevitably happen again. The real question isn't if it will happen, but when. And even more importantly, are we prepared? Imagine a solar storm with the sheer power of the 1770 event striking Earth today. The first sign would be a breathtaking spectacle, brilliant blood-red auroras dancing across the entire globe, visible even in the tropics. It would likely be the most beautiful thing you'd ever see. And it would also be the last. In the moments that follow, our modern world would begin to unravel. The first domino to fall would be our global power grid. A massive electromagnetic pulse, a tidal wave of energy from the sun, would wash over the planet. This pulse would induce currents so powerful they would surge through our power lines, causing transformers at substations worldwide to explode in showers of sparks. Within minutes, entire continents would plunge into darkness. This wouldn't be a simple blackout fixed in a few hours or days. This would be a catastrophic, long-term shutdown. Think about it. Thousands of massive, custom-built transformers destroyed simultaneously. It could take months, possibly even years, to manufacture and replace them all. For that entire time, the world as we know it would be without power. Just as the lights go out on Earth, the second wave of the attack would hit us from above, in orbit. The hundreds, even thousands of satellites that form the backbone of our civilization would be fried. GPS, global communications, financial markets, weather forecasting, all controlled by these delicate instruments in space. The intense solar radiation would disable them, turning them into a silent, dead fleet of metal tumbling uselessly through the void. The consequences are almost unthinkable. The internet would cease to exist. Phones would go dead. Global trade and finance would screech to an immediate halt. Our entire digital world, everything we rely on for information, connection, and commerce, would simply vanish. We would be thrown into a new dark age. But here's the terrifying difference. Unlike our ancestors in 1770 who lived locally and self-sufficiently, we are utterly dependent on a global system that would no longer exist. Without power and communication, the complex supply chains that deliver food, clean water, and medicine to our cities would collapse within days. It wouldn't just be an inconvenience, it would be a global survival crisis on a scale humanity has never witnessed. For our ancestors, the 1770 event was a terrifying and mysterious spectacle. For us, a similar event would mean the end of the modern world. The fire in the sky would ignite a fire that consumes everything we've built. So the next time you look up at our calm, life-giving sun, remember the awesome and terrifying power it holds. The forgotten files of history are there to remind us that we live on this planet at the mercy of cosmic forces far beyond our control. What do you think? Is our modern society too fragile? Are we sleepwalking into a catastrophe? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you have a hunger for these forgotten warnings hidden in the archives of history, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.